Hey there, I am back with another Free the Pip Friday where I open up some of the rarest decks out there and give you guys a chance to see those that usually remain sealed. And for this one, we're going to be looking at the fourth and final installment in Season 1 of Yoku's Inner Circle decks. This is Cult Fire. Now, Inner Circle is my favorite subscription in playing cards today. For your subscription, you not only get a quarterly package that includes exclusive decks like the Cult series, but you also get access to their forums. And those forums provide a wealth of extra value, whether it's peeks behind the scenes at productions or a deeper dive into the lore of the decks, which is something that I absolutely love. So if you haven't checked out Inner Circle, definitely recommend it. But for this one, we're going back to the Cult series. Now, Season 1, or the first year of Inner Circle, has been all about cults. The exclusive decks every quarter have been following the story of 4 different cults, these elemental-based cults from around the world. Ancient cults that have been around for ages, and they follow different aspects of their chosen element. So in the past, we've gotten the air, earth, and water decks, and now we close it out with the final element, fire. The followers of the Cult of Fire worship not only literal fire, but also the representative elements of chaos and destruction. So this is a really interesting theme for the deck, and really excited to see this one come to a close because the whole Cult series has been fantastic. So let's get into it, starting with the tuck case. Now, if you've seen the other Cult decks, you'll recognize the 2-piece construction of this one. These tucks were printed by Bashero and Newton out of Italy. They do an amazing job with tuck cases, some of the best embossing and foil work anywhere in the world right now. And this one is no exception. So the inner tuck here is done on this kind of orangish red matte finish, but with beautiful, very subtle embossing that gives you the image of the flames making their way up the tuck case, and then accented with little licks of flame done in the gold foil. It's a great, subtle, but very elegant looking tuck case overall. And then it's fitted with a bottom sleeve here that's done in a pearlescent gold stock. Great match of the colors there. You can see the Cult in that orangish red foil there on the bottom. And then as you turn it around, you can see that shaped bottom sleeve, and in the back here, it's numbered individually out of the 1,000 deck run. And my favorite part, that fantastic wax seal. This one's done in a swirl of red colors, holding that gold ribbon into place. And that ribbon wraps around the entire tuck case to kind of keep it sealed. And the best way to open this one, if you pull this bottom sleeve away, you can literally just cut the ribbon right underneath. Just slide some scissors in there, and then allows you to pull this away, get to the tuck case itself, and then when you're done, you can just tuck that ribbon back underneath, and looks just like new. Anyway, that's how you open it up. But as you lift that ribbon away, you can see Cult on the top there and that gold foil. Little elements there, just embellishments of kind of abstract flames on the inner flap. And then here's the alchemical symbol for fire on these smaller inner flaps. You also get some great interior foiling, those sparks that are meant to be flames that are swirling their way through the middle of the tuck case here. Gold foil all the way down just gives you that extra sense of luxury. Fantastic tuck case, unique construction overall, and great fit with the rest of the Cult line. So great job by Bashero and Newton on the execution of the tuck case, and of course Jocu for the concept. But let's get into the cards. Now, the first thing you may have noticed is the beautiful gold gilding on these. All of the decks, again, in the Cult line are gilded. Beautiful mirror finish on these, and that gold is a great match for the bright red, vibrant colors that are used for the back design. Red and gold, just a classic combination. And speaking of that back design, here's a closer look at that. A great image here with this woman with the ropey strands of hair. Artist Alessandra Gagliana, she did all the art for this one and for basically all the Jocu decks. This sort of ropey ropey hair here is kind of a signature of hers. Those large, thick strands of hair, multiple colors in there. I love the style of this one. Stylistically or structurally, this back design is very similar to the other Cult ones. And it kind of follows a green man theme, meaning the green man is sort of an earth symbol. And so each one of the decks has their own version of the green man. So you could call this the red woman if you wanted to, as the sort of green man of the fire cult. And then that hair matches beautifully with the style of the flames that are running up the sides of the card back here and filling in almost all that empty space. You get flames all over the place, almost like the entire back of the card's on fire. Really cool look to it, and then finishes out with a bright red poker border around the edge. So love the back design on this one. Really well done there. All right, now turning to the faces of the cards, and we'll start with the pair of jokers. You get a black and a red joker, and they have a sort of fire dancer on each one of them. Really cool, interesting poses, especially on the male. And the black joker here, love the arched back and almost like he's hurling a fireball into the air. Little licks of flame all over the place and fire swirling around them, and then sort of the bird-themed headdress on his head there. And then the female joker standing there with her arms crossed. She has the wings on her back and everything. But again, a really nice look to these overall with the red and the black jokers. You also get an extra card here. I'll call this a little bit of an ad card. Has some copy down here at the bottom mentioning Alessandro Gagliano, who did the art, Anthony Holt for the concept, a little thank you to the Inner Circle subscribers. And then at the top here, you get a little bit of a line or a few lines about Prometheus. Now, Prometheus is a character that we're gonna see a little bit later as we get into the course, but he was known for being the one who stole fire from the gods in Greek mythology and gave it to humans. And so one of the fire origin stories from around the world centers around Prometheus. But cool little ad card, definitely like that. And a double backer, always nice to get. All right, into the main deck. And we start with the Ace of Spades. This is a beautiful Ace of Spades. No words or anything on it, but you get that large, rounded, kind of bulbous pip. You see that kind of rounded, fat style quite a bit from Jocu. But this one, of course, in keeping with the fire theme, is completely ablaze. You get the flames running their way up the sides, and almost like the entire spade pip is engulfed in the little swirl of fire at the base. Very interesting look to it. Loves the reds and the oranges and the yellows, the mixture of colors that are used on this one. And then a kind of a calligraphy font, and then that rounded pip, not on fire this time, in the corner. The other three aces, a little bit simpler overall. They feature larger pips in the center, and then just a really simple white silhouette image of something fire related. A little ember here on the diamond, the lightning bolts cracking their way across the club, and then the larger flame on the heart. So the black cards typically, or the kind of classic black color, and then the red cards are kind of a little bit more of an orangish red color, a little bit lighter than like a typical bicycle deck. So there's your aces. Number cards all feature custom pips. Again, that sort of rounded style. You can see it much better here on the number cards. And then something that Jocu does a lot that I absolutely love, one or more of the pips are given that little embellishment in the center. So in here, the three little embers in the middle of the spade. And it's a random number that's on each one. So like here on the 4, you'll see 2 of them done, or in the 5, just 1 of them. I love the mixture of pips, that sort of asymmetrical look to the pips. It gives something a little bit more interesting to it, something to look at. There's 4 of them on the 9, and then back to just 2 on the 10. So really like that element. As you go to the red cards here, you'll see the little ember on some of the pips. This is something I really wish more playing cards would do. I think it was one of the Fulton's decks was the first time I saw this, but I like it a lot. It's a little bit more interesting than having either having all the pips be the same. And then into the hearts with that reddish orange color and the flame in the middle. All right, and then we get to the courts. And with all of the cult decks, the courts are really where it's at. So the courts are where we see not just some beautiful artwork from Alessandro Gagliano, but we also get a chance to explore some of the inspiration of the cult itself. So mentioned up front, the fire cultists worship chaos and destruction. So some of the things here are based on literal fire, and some of them, like the jacks here, are a little bit more angled towards chaos. And specifically, these are all tricksters. Characters who are highlighted more for their subtle approach for mischief. So not directly causing violence of any sort, but kind of taking a little bit more underhanded approach to it. Beautiful look to all of them, 2-way quartz on each. And we start off with none other than the club here. This is the classic Loki, the original trickster of Norse mythology. You've seen him in the Avengers movies. He's known for his complex relationship with the other Norse gods, including his half-brother Thor. And you can see on his chest here that little cross tattoo. Not sure if that's intentional, but for me it looks a lot like the Gosforth Cross in England. It's this stone-carved monument, and among all the carvings on the base of it, you can actually find a pretty famous depiction of Loki and his wife on it. So I think that may be what that reference to the cross is for. But love the flames that are surrounding Loki here, that determined look on his face as well. So there's your Jack of Clubs. Jack of Spades, this is Yallery Brown. Comes from an old Lincolnshire folktale. Centers around the story of a lad named Tom who rescues the mischievous Yallery from under a rock. Yallery sort of rewards Tom by granting him a blessing, a wish. So Tom asks Yallery just to help him out with his chores. But the blessing quickly turns into a curse because that's what tricksters do. And so Tom's colleagues begin to resent him, and eventually Tom loses everything, all thanks to Yallery's blessing. So Yallery actually appears in another one of Jocu's decks, in the Green Man deck, as one of the Jokers. So if you have that one, pull it out. You may spot Yallery in there again. But very cool look to him overall. I love the beard kind of twisting down on this one. Next up is the Jack of Hearts. This is another really obscure myth. This is the tale of the Devil of Brebbia. Comes from a legend in northern Lombardy. It was a man who was building a church in which he was going to get married, and he was struggling with the work, but then he encountered this demon you see here, who offered to help him with the work under one condition. The man had to promise that anytime the demon asked him for work, the man would give him work. And the man was like, well, that seems simple, so he agreed. But soon found he couldn't give the demon's task fast enough. He kept giving the demon a task, the demon would finish it instantly, ask for the next task, and the man's life basically became consumed with just trying to supply the demon with work as he'd promised. So interesting little, again, another one of those stories of a blessing turned curse. But here you can see that sort of mischievous look. You can see the twinkle in his eye, little raised eyebrow there on the Jack of Hearts, the Demon of Brebbia. And then the final Jack, the final trickster, is the Crystal Palace Trickster. This is another story that's a callback to the Green Man deck, actually. The tale of Yvonne, if you've seen that card in there. Yvonne's sister was stolen away by a charming prince who lived in a crystal castle, and Yvonne went to go save her. And this is that charming prince who actually turned out to be the Lord of the Underworld in secret. You can see that very confident look on his face as he's surrounded by the crystals of his palace. Another very nice one. All right, and now we go into the queens. So now we're away from the tricksters into some other characters significant to fire mythology. And we start with Persephone, a very interesting choice. So Persephone was the daughter of Demeter and actually the goddess of rebirth, but that wasn't the aspect that really appealed to the fire cultists. They instead focused on her role as the wife of Hades, Lord of the Underworld. And in that role, she kind of became a little bit of a personification of death, and that's what you see depicted here. She has the flames, the skull in her hands, and that very sort of dark look on her face with that eye makeup and the lip makeup there. But very kind of creepy vibe to this one overall. Next up is the Queen of Diamonds. This is another kind of interesting choice on this one as well. This is Brig. She has a number of different depictions in different mythologies, but the one here that we're looking at is her role as the Celtic goddess of fire. And she has almost kind of a pile of candles around her, a little bit of an older woman there, and interesting choice of eye makeup as well. Kind of gives her that creepy look again. The third one, this is probably my most interesting court card of all from the Queen of Clubs. This is the Hawthorn tree. A tree, not a woman. The tree, the hawthorn tree, actually plays into one of the fire origin stories of the world, which tells of a hawthorn tree that was struck by lightning and started the very first fire on Earth. And you can see in the branches here, the fires that are kind of making their way through as the lightning struck them. But the fire cult turned that story into a depiction of the hawthorn tree as a female goddess. And so that's what you see here, almost like a woman turned tree. So very cool. I love that one. I love the sort of personification of an interesting tree-based myth. And then finally is the Queen of Hearts, and this is the succubus. Succubuses originate from Jewish lore. It comes from the tale of Adam's first wife. So he actually, in Judaism, had a wife before Eve, and her name was Lilith. She later left him and married the archangel Samael, becoming the chaotic demon that we see depicted in lore today. They're usually very seductive characters, and that's sort of what you see here with that little wink on her face, biting her finger there. So that's what you see depicted on this card. And again, that sort of play into chaos of some sort or mischief really appealed to the fire cult, and so that's why you see the flames all around her. Very cool to this one. I love her hair on this one too. Really well depicted there. So that's the queens, and now we get to the kings. And for me, these are some of the most interesting stories in the entire deck. And we start off with the King of Hearts here. You may recognize this from the mask if you've seen V for Vendetta. This is, of course, Guy Fawkes. Guy was famous for spearheading the gunpowder plot back in 1605. Real life character. The plot was to blow up the British Parliament, an event that was sort of an important one for the fire cult. And in this version of the lore, Guy was actually successful. He blew up the Parliament and in fact started a fire that engulfed all of England and kicked off a great war. So his bid to cause chaos was successful, and of course that's what drew the interest of the fire cult. Now, just a little spoiler alert, this is something that I expect to be explored a little bit further. This sort of alternate history, expected to be a little bit further explored in some of the future Jocu decks, so stay tuned for that. Would love to see that go a little bit further. Now we stay in the same time period for the King of Diamonds. This is a Plague Doctor. So these very distinctive characters, you may recognize that long-beaked face mask there. They were the ones who actually treated victims of the bubonic plague in Europe. These masks usually had aromatics of some sort, herbs or whatever, in that long beak there. And they thought that those aromatics would protect them in some way. They were wrong, but that's what they believed. And these guys were, of course, a big part of the scene during that same time period when Guy Fawkes was planning his attack. So that's why they get a feature on the King of Diamonds. And again, the little flames, the sparks of fire in the air. Just a really dark, sinister look. These guys always look cool on a deck or on a piece of art or anything like that. That kind of steampunk vibe. All right, almost done here. 2 courts to go. And the King of Clubs, this is a classic. This is the Roman god of war, Mars. Definitely speaks to the themes of chaos and violence that so appeal to the fire occultists. He's shown here with an eagle helmet on his head, but the eagle's helmet is kind of on fire here, which kind of makes me think a little bit of the phoenix, another classic fire symbol. The phoenix was a legendary fire bird that was said to be endlessly reborn from its own ashes. So I think this is meant to depict an eagle helmet, but the phoenix tie-in, I think, really fits well with the fire cult. And you can see that angry look on Mars's face as he's literally breathing fire. And then the final court, and this is a truly fascinating one, and the one where everything comes full circle. So before I talk about this one, I want to show you one other card, this one here. And you'll see it's the same artwork. This was actually how the cult series began. At the very beginning, for those who signed up for Inner Circle right at the beginning, we were sent a package that included this one charred card here. You can see it's actually been burned and charred in several places and depicted what at the time we were given the card was an unnamed character. And that basically kicked off the mystery and the journey of the cult series. And so this was the card that really drew me in. Looked at this, obviously was able to figure out who it was. And it's so cool to finally see it come full circle with the final card in the entire series. So just a fun little addition. This one obviously had a little bit of different back design to it. They hadn't finished that piece yet, but this was, according to the story, this was a card that was found on one of the fire cultists' person when they were captured. And so kind of kicked off the whole mystery. But anyway, let's get back to the card itself and talk about who this is. So we talked about him with the extra card. This is, of course, Prometheus. Prometheus is arguably the most famous fire origin story that there is. It was said that he was one who stole fire from the gods themselves, gave it to man, and as a result, he was punished by Zeus, basically tied to a rock, and Zeus sent an eagle every day to eat out Prometheus's liver. And so here you can see him with the torch in his hand, symbolizing the fire that he stole, but then also with the chains dangling down from his arms, signifying his eternal punishment. So very cool card, and love to see the whole series come full circle. And that is it. That is the deck. As far as handling, I will say the gilding and the handling that Cardamundi and Jocu were able to maintain with their cards, absolutely phenomenal. These are done by Cardamundi, so that super thin stock that they're so well known for, and it handles just beautifully. The gilding doesn't stand in the way in any way whatsoever. So great handling deck overall. That said, you know, it's a rarer deck, and one that I really doubt people are really going to make use of with cardistry or anything like that, or gameplay, but you certainly could. But anyway, that's it. That is the look at the 4th installment in the Cult series. Has been one of the best things to come out of 2021 and now into 2022 for me. A huge fan of this one, so I'll put a plug in again. Definitely go check out the Inner Circle. I cannot wait to see what they have in store for Season 2. All right, that's it for now. Hope you enjoyed this look at Cult Fire. Make sure to subscribe for more deck reviews, more unboxings. Let me know what else you want to see, and I'll see you for the next one.